Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the final episode of the Better World Challenge podcast in 2020. We finished this year strong with an uplifting, inspirational conversation with Sarah Koski, a Better World human storyteller and executive director at Love for Lane County. In our conversation, you're going to hear insights on why we should focus on serving our local communities, the importance of having a rich heart, and using our gifts for good. Now let's dive in. Hi, I'm Justin Furtado, a social entrepreneur with a passion and experience in community engagement and philanthropy located in Eugene, Oregon. It's our responsibility to take care of our communities, have uplifting conversations, and make the world a better place. You're listening to the Better World Challenge podcast. Hello and welcome to the Better World Humans podcast, Sarah. It's great to have you on. My first question for you is, what inspires you when you wake up and get out of bed in the morning?
Oh, great question, Justin. I think the biggest thing that inspires me is creating a legacy. I think that a lot of people are out here in social media, and they want to show the world, the glitz and glamour of life. But all of that at one point or another, when you think about like natural disasters or anything, all of that can be meaningless in a drop of a dime. But what is it? What are you leaving? And what is the story that you can tell your children and your grandchildren about the accomplishments and the impact that you made to the community? So I think it's really, for me, thinking about how I can make this world a better place for for my for my future.
Well, you're perfect for the Better World Humans podcast then. And so what exact legacy are you trying to create?
There's so many perspectives that you could go for this. I think, you know, with this pandemic and with COVID and with the Western wildfires that happened, I've always had such a global mindset. A lot of the work that I had done is international work, social media, emerging technology, working with like drones and humanitarian aid. And it's all cool and sexy and fun, right? But at the end of the day, it's what are you doing for your local community to help your neighbors and those around you and your friends? I mean, I can be doing all these amazing things or winning all of these awards or doing all of these accomplishments. But if I'm not helping to foster a better, more enriched local community, you know, and so I think this year really made me focus on local in the Eugene Springfield community and what I could do just in my own minuscule microcosm to support us in Linn County.
Yeah, I think that's a good supporting local. Like I like to think about it, thinking global, acting local.
Absolutely.
And I know I've been on like service trips to Uganda twice, and I've really realized that it's kind of opened my eyes to I need to really do a lot more things at home instead of like, yes, there is this huge need in Uganda, and like having like cultural exposure to a completely different way of life than my Western, I guess, lifestyle is unique and great. But
Right.
there's so much need here in the Lane County community, and which brings me to my next question. You are the executive director for Love for Lane County. What about Lane County really drives and motivates you to want to give back and make a difference here?
There's a lot of hurting people in Lane County. So me, myself, the reason why I serve is it's just naturally in my DNA. I mean, as a kid, I was fundraising in like fourth grade. I was doing mural projects and collaborations in elementary school. I mean, I was not a normal child. I mean, it was built in me to want to serve and be compassionate. And I'm really grateful to my parents and my family for fostering those gifts. But after college, I had my own spiritual experience, and I became a Christian. And one of the things that our pastor talks about is it's great to want to travel the world and be a missionary and help all these people, but what are you doing to help the people next to you in your pews? Like you can be so focused on the grass is greener on the other side of like traveling the world and accomplishments, and bless you, Justin, for doing what you did in Uganda. But I really appreciate your wisdom and your perspective of we have to be really focused on Lane County. If you look at the statistics, even Futurama and The Simpsons jokes about our homeless populations. I mean, it's world renowned for the amount of mental health crises, the unhoused, the amount of runaway youth, the amount of trafficked youth, men and women, boys and girls that come out of Lane County. Um, we think that we are a big city, but we have a small town mentality. So it's ripe for a lot of trafficking of our at-risk youth. And so the focus for here, I mean, you have to have a heart to serve, because a lot of hurt people, right? They have these walls up, they have these guards up, and it takes a lot of prayer and a lot of compassion to reach out to the Lane County community, just because there's a lot of broken, fragile people.
And that's kind of difficult to grapple with. And like, how do you approach, with a compassionate heart to try and mend some of these broken hearts, or, this hurt through either love for Lane County or your personal life?
For me, because of my faith, I believe in the power of prayer, right? We are taught in church that, there's these scriptures that say, silver and gold have I not, but what I have I give to you. And what we possess is, the fruits of the Spirit: love, compassion, peace, joy. But for me, my first foundation is prayer. Just, and even that grounds me, when we can get frustrated with clients, or, somebody where it appears that they're trying to take advantage of the system, right? But how can you determine that? And for me, it's really putting myself in their shoes. If I was in a major crisis, if I only had 24 hours before I'm getting kicked out of my house, how would I react? Would I be edgy? Would I be touchy? And really like putting myself in these predicaments of our clients, because Love for Lane County, we're a stopgap ministry, meaning that organizations like Shelter Care, White Bird, the VA, their client caseworkers, they max out their resources in those agencies, and then they reach out to us to see if we could fulfill the need that they can't fulfill. So we're getting a lot of really at risk, or like, hurting individuals. And then, it just has to be that love, like for whatever you believe. For me, it's Jesus, but for you, whatever you believe, finding whatever is in you with that love and compassion, and then sharing that. For me, it's the heart of Jesus. That's why I do the work that I do. But sharing that compassion and paying it forward, right? We talk a lot about how to pay it forward. Like if someone helps you, something in us wants to be obligated to help somebody else. And I think that that's really important in the Lane County community, is whatever we can do in the smallest way to pay it forward, that's what we should be doing.
So I hear from you, like, leading with love is probably, love and compassion is the most important thing. And I agree. I think I work at the Boys and Girls Club, and like, even if they're frustrating you, if you just like love them at the end of the day, like there just needs to be more love in the world. And that's how you're going to break through like all of this hate. And you have a awesome quote on your LinkedIn. It's, in the end, anti-Black, anti-female, and all forms of discrimination are equivalent to the same thing of anti-humanism, Shirley Chisholm.
Right.
And that really stuck with me, because obviously 2020 has been a year where I know for myself, like I'm recognized my white privilege, but it's kind of the year I really woke up to like, okay, there's a lot of inequities in the world, and there's a lot of anti-humanism going on.
Yeah.
And how does this quote like guide you in life?
Wow. Amazing. So I've always been really passionate about, I grew up in Salem, Oregon. I went to Sprague High School. I mean, the statistics are wrong. We were probably 94% upper middle class, white, highly privileged, 2 country clubs fed into my high school. I was on like the lower range of the poverty spectrum, and we were great middle class, right? And so I was raised in a very conservative community that pushed me to want to be liberal, because, I was seeing some things and some trends in my area about, minor racist comments, different things going on. And that's not who I wanted to be. So, by the time I got to the University of Oregon, that communal lifestyle and just kind of that free love and that free thinking was really appealing to me. And during the time, I started studying Buddhism, because that was like where I wanted to go, because I was thinking about, like different options to peace and different ways to like higher transcendence. But in the end, I found my faith, and one of the things that we talk about is the blood of Jesus Christ as a Christian, right? And going back to that Shirley Chisholm comment, we could be indigenous, we could be black, we could be white, but at the end of the day, we all bleed the same color, right? We all bleed the color red. And it's just even looking at like houses, every house is structurally created the same way, the wood, the beams, the mortar, the paint, it's just the color of the paint on the outside of the house. It doesn't mean that the heartbeat on the inside of the house is any different based on the fact that you want a green house or a blue house. And so trying to foster that mission, especially in Oregon, with a predominantly white population, is definitely something that's been a passion of mine, because really, like I said, at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all brothers and sisters. I mean, think about it from the spiritual side or the evolution side, whatever one believes, we all come from somewhere and we're all related in some aspect. So that's where a lot of that love has to come in. I mean, regardless of where anybody stands, we're all the same at the end of the day.
Right. And so would you say like this belief in a higher power and like ultimate connection between, humans is what really drives that love and compassion for humans, and especially here in Lane County?
What's really funny is before I had, my faith encounter in Jesus, I was about as dystopic as you could get, Justin. Like for Kafka's The Trial, if you've ever read that, just about, like just hopelessness and helplessness and all of that was the way that I lived my life. Even though there was some sort of like want and need and desire to help the community, like I kept thinking in the end, all of this is meaningless and we're all just going to get blown up in the apocalypse. And, why try? And I think that a lot of people, especially working in the nonprofit or the humanitarian sector, I see this all the time. Uh, People get burned out, because, even you traveling to Uganda, you see like you're pressing, you see all of this, and then you come back to the United States and are privileged, and you're like, man, like, going and getting a $6 Starbucks could have like helped how many children, like overseas, right? And so that's where my shifting of dystopia to faith really played a part in everything. Like you have to have some sort of faith in something to move you and keep yourself grounded. Because if you even think about work in disaster aid, they train you and teach you. If you're a volunteer for the American Red Cross or even a humanitarian initiative, they say that the first person you have to take care of is yourself. Make sure you're hydrated, make sure you're grounded, make sure you're getting your sleep. Because if you don't take care of yourself, what's the point of even doing what you're doing? And so, really keeping some sort of faith or grounding is very important.
Oh yeah, and I agree that self-compassion is so important. And I actually just wrote an article the other day about being your own best friend and just like kind of like giving you what you need. I think you treat others the way you treat yourself. Like there are
Mhm.
definitely some people that go above and beyond for others and not themselves, but they burn out, like you say. And like this, it nurtures yourself when you're believing in something greater than your own being and your own, not even necessarily your own community, but it's bigger than Lane County, right?
Yeah.
And it really drives you, forward to do the work that you want to do. And I know you just did a great, so we can talk about the wildfires here, and the McKinsey River community is hurting because of this year's wildfires, and you did a great story and video. Could you talk about some of the stories that people are going through right now?
There's a lot of people who do a lot of great things. I mean, there's people out there right now sifting through ash to find, like wedding rings and remains of memories far gone, right? There's people cutting down trees and helping to make sure that the infrastructure of, the soil and all of that is safe for people to return. And everybody has their own niche and their own lane. Um, what God has blessed me to be is a storyteller. And one of the things that I think is very important in every society is oral tradition, written tradition, folklore, history, all of that. And so the way that I can give back, I'm not the richest woman in the world, but I have a rich heart and I have a great love. And so the gift that I give is how to be able to tell an individual story. So I was blessed. I have a good friend, June Shada, who works in Senator Wyden's office. She received a call from the McKinsey CDC, which is the McKinsey Community Development Corporation, uh, about a man who was up in McKinsey. His name is Mickey. He's in Nimrod, Oregon, and he was not necessarily a community elder, but a pillar in the community. He worked on all, you think about McKinsey Mist and all the wells that are out there. He was the one who repaired all the wells. And not only did his house of 19 years burn down, his shop burned down, all the work and tools and mechanic machinery to help with the wells burned. His dad was the golf pro up at Tokedy. All the memories of his father and the golf cart's gone. So I have a good friend, Nico Smart, who is a visionary and an amazing photographer and videographer, and we wanted to tell Mickey's story. So we took a drone, we took some of Nico's equipment out there and told Mickey's story. And we were very blessed. We were the first people outside of his neighbors that he actually allowed on his property. We got to tour his home. But a lot of things, when you think about our age, I don't know how well you're almost a decade younger than I am now. I'm getting old, Justin. I'm 37, right? And so I'm like in the prime of the millennials. And then, I got Facebook sophomore year of college, right? Facebook was open to the universities sophomore year for me. So I was born with half of an era of no social media and technology and half of an era building and learning. I mean, y'all, bless your hearts, have been raised on all of this technology. So I'm like the stopgap between the boomers and these zoomers. And it's like, but what's really interesting is that to be able to tell these stories in a way for someone like me, a millennial who thinks they're indestructible, or for someone like a Zoomer or Generation Z who may not understand what this community means, because when you think about the McKinsey region, I mean, they check after their neighbors, they knock on their doors, they have these dinners, they know every neighbor up and down a 10-mile stretch. I mean, I'm so isolated, I don't even know who my roommate is, like next door in the apartment, right? Like, never have had any contact. So how do we tell these stories of like this great Americana love and hardiness of the McKinsey region to not only, the elder population in Eugene, but to a younger population where they can actually see what role these rural communities play?
Yeah, that's such a wonderful story. And I'm from actually a rural community myself. I went to a K through 8 that had
Oh
120
my
kids. So I understand and empathize. And as I drive to Bend from Eugene, I often, see those little houses. And I didn't grow up in a rural life like that. And I can't even imagine what a wildfire doing that much damage to these communities could have on them. And like, that's
right.
everything. Their neighbors are everything. And I really enjoyed that story, and it goes to show the importance of just showing the humanity in everyone. I think rural people often get glazed over
Mm-hmm.
because they're not in the inner city. They're not the ones that stories are getting told. So I think that is an incredible and powerful thing to tell their story. And as we wrap up this awesome conversation, what kind of story do you want to leave this podcast on?
Use your gifts for good. I mean, that if I could tell anybody around me, everybody has a gift, everybody has a talent. I don't care if you're an artist, if you're a poet, if you are a podcaster like you, Justin, bless your heart for what you're doing. Use your gifts for good. Even, pro athletes, you look, they have their foundations and, they're giving out, Thanksgiving, Christmas, they're supporting their community. But you don't have to be rich in money to bless the people around you. You just have to be rich in spirit. And so whatever you can do, If it just means smiling at somebody in the grocery store who looks like they're about to cry, or just giving somebody a compliment on the elevator, it doesn't matter. But those little things, you think about those small ripples that happen into a pond. And even, how they talk about tsunamis, where it's the butterfly wing with the wind, and then it ends up being like this huge crashing wave. Everything can build up, and you don't know the impact that you might have on a small gesture of kindness. And if there's anything that I can close with, kindness wins, love wins, supporting humanity wins. We have to collaborate. Competition and one up and all of this social media gunk that's going on will not win in the end. What wins in the end, like you saw with that Shirley quote, is humanity.
Love wins in the end. Thank you so much for your time today, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Justin.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Better World Challenge podcast. I hope you're feeling inspired right now. To find out more about how you can make the world a better place, check out our website at thebetterworldchallenge.com. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because together we can really make the world a better place.